So now you got more details. You got the key detail wrong, what you were writing about in your book, but now you remember an additional detail. You not only winked, you elbowed your brother. Even though the reason for the wink in your writing was the fact that Reverend was using the title, something that had never been done, but it wasn't used.
At a wild congressional showdown, Mr. Stew passes the mic to Chair Jordan, then dives right into a heated debate with Mr. Shank. Shank is dead set, claiming Gail Wright told him this bombshell piece of information. Both Justice Alito and Gail Wright are on the same page, saying, "Nope, that never happened." What's going down is a classic he said, she said, but with the stakes sky high. They're not just regular lawyers, these are big names, with big reputations on the line in front of the whole country. Mr. Jordan isn't just poking around for fun, he's digging deep, challenging Shank to come clean or prove his point. This is about the truth and integrity of our highest legal eagles. In order to challenge him, Jordan starts using passages of Shank's book.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Shank, did Gail Wright really tell you that?
Yes.
Justice Alito said he didn't tell her. She said she didn't tell him, but you're sure she told you?
Absolutely.
Now, you wrote a book a couple of years ago, is that right? 2018, you wrote a book?
Yes.
I want to read a section from that book. It's a section where you relate you and your family attended oral arguments at the court. You were there in the courtroom, and that directly involved your brother Paul, also a reverend. And I just want to read this section. You said, with the single rap of the gavel, Chief Justice William Rehnquist announced, "We'll hear argument first this morning in number 95-1065, Reverend Paul Shank and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York." Paul and I winked at each other, knowing we had made history with that Reverend in his name. It had been a minor victory when we persuaded the court that Reverend should remain before Paul's name, even though we had been told repeatedly that legal briefs never included such titles. You thought it was important that, obviously based on what you said, you thought it was important that the title Reverend be in front of Paul's name, is that right?
Correct.
And why was that?
Because we saw it as a religious liberty matter, and that would make it clear that it fit in that category.
Did Chief Justice Rehnquist really say that the way I just read it from your book?
I can't say that I remember.
Well, you're pretty darn specific here. You got the number, case number 95-1065. Very next word says Reverend Paul Shank. You made it a big deal. Thought it's the first time it's ever happened. I'm just asking, did it really happen?
I wish I could tell. I would have to go back and review that.
So it may not have?
Possibly not.
Why do you say possibly not? You were emphatic in your book.
Jordan is deep into reading that book, the very one Shank put his name on, and Jordan, sounding a bit confused, wants to know if the stories in it are for real. Shank's answer? He just can't remember. That's a big problem. This makes people wonder how they can trust what Shank says at all. Jordan feels let down, like he's been told a story that might just be make-believe. It shakes his belief in what Shank has put out there for everyone to read. But Jordan isn't just going to let it go with that weak answer. He pushes Shank, pointing out that the book talks about very specific things. How can Shank not remember those now? The air gets tense, and just when you think it can't get more heated, he calls Shank out for not telling the truth. Shank's story is falling apart, and Jordan stands firm, wondering how anyone can believe him now.
I would have to go back.
We did go back. We did go back, and I got the transcript right here. Proceedings, 10:05 a.m., Chief Justice Rehnquist. We'll hear argument first this morning in number 95-1065, Paul Shank and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York. Did you hear it?
I did.
Was there a word missing?
Title Reverend.
Yeah, wasn't in there. In your book, you said it was a big deal, so much so that you winked at your brother. Did you wink at your brother?
Yes.
What'd you wink for if it wasn't in the title?
Well, it was our case.
But that's not, you said you winked because they included Reverend in the title, and the transcript says Mr. Rehnquist didn't.
Perhaps not.
Perhaps? Court reporter get it wrong? Did he say it and the court reporter get it wrong?
Well then,
Well, we got the audio too. I'm going to play that for everyone to hear.
We'll hear argument first this morning, number 95-1065, Paul Schenck and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York.
Reverend, did you hear that?
I did.
Was there a word missing that's different from what you put in your book?
The title, yes.
What was that title?
Reverend.
Reverend was not there. Right? Did you wink at your brother?
I think I did. In fact, I think I actually
Oh, wow.
poked him.
So now you got more details. You got the key detail wrong, what you were writing about in your book, but now you remember an additional detail. You not only winked, you elbowed your brother. Even though the reason for the wink in your writing was the fact that Reverend was using the title, something that had never been done, but it wasn't used. But we're supposed to believe you today. We're supposed to take your word over Justice Alito's word. We're supposed to take your word over a lady who gave you dollars donated to your cause, Miss Gail Wright. You're disparaging her name, Justice Alito's name, and the court. And you have this, which obviously didn't happen. We got the transcript, we got the audio, but you made it a big deal in your book. One thing I've learned, people who mislead folks on small things, mislead them on big things. And you know what? You can lie in a book, it's not a crime. You can lie to the New York Times, that's not a crime. But when you come in front of Congress and you say things that are not true, you're not allowed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. And we have seen it. You're not supposed to do that. I yield back.
Jordan really turned the tables this time, standing up in that crowded room, accusing him of playing pretend with people's reputations. Jordan was on fire, claiming that Schenck wasn't just stretching the truth a little. He was making up complete fairy tales and passing them off as hard facts in his book. According to Jordan, it was as if Schenck had decided to play storyteller, spinning yarns that could tarnish a judge's good name without a second thought. And how did Schenck react? Like he'd just seen a ghost. You could see the panic in his eyes, the way he fumbled for words that just wouldn't come. It was like watching a scene from a movie, the villain caught red-handed with nowhere to run. The whole room was on edge, everyone holding their breath, watching as Schenck tried and failed to find a way out of the mess he'd made. His awkward silence filled the room, louder than any words could have been. But Jordan wasn't done, not by a long shot. He had come prepared to dismantle Schenck's stories piece by piece, and that's exactly what he did. With each word, it was as if he was pulling bricks from the base of Schenck's tower of lies, watching as it wobbled, ready to fall. Schenck must have felt the walls closing in, his once bold claims now seeming like distant memories, each one turning against him. It was a spectacle, the kind that makes you squirm in your seat, witnessing a man's reputation disintegrate before your very eyes. Jordan's assault was relentless, a verbal onslaught that left Schenck exposed, his fabrications laid bare for all to see. In the aftermath, the air was heavy with the echo of Jordan's accusations, a silence that spoke of shattered illusions and the downfall of a man who had once held the room's attention. Schenck, once so confident, now looked diminished, a shadow of his former self, wishing for nothing more than to escape the glaring spotlight of truth that Jordan had shone on him. The mood was somber, reflective of the gravity of what had just unfolded, a public unmasking, the unveiling of truths that Schenck had tried so hard to bury. Jordan, with his dogged determination and unwavering pursuit of honesty, had turned the tables in a way that left no room for doubt. Schenck's narrative castle, built on shaky ground, was crumbling, and with it, any shred of trust or credibility he might have once claimed.